shadow of my wings.
In the first part, I spoke about the Ring of Power being an allegory or symbol for our own inner shadow or demon, which is a part of the psyche each individual possesses. In this second part, I will talk about the collective shadow archetype, the trickster, which is the personal embodiment and cosmic power of evil. With a little self-criticism, one can see through the shadow so far as its nature is personal, but when it appears as an archetype, one encounters the same difficulties as with anima and animus. In other words, it is quite within the bounds of possibility for a man to recognize the relative evil of his nature, but it is a rare and shattering experience for him to gaze into the face of absolute evil. The trickster archetype is the objective manifestation of that evil. All people's lives are influenced by this archetype in different degrees, and some seem to become the very embodiment of it. Villains in books, series, movies, mythology, etc. are always based on this trickster archetype.
Mr. White, he's the devil.
And even all of the heroes possess qualities of a dark and shadowy nature because the fundamental goal of initiation lies in taming the original trickster-like wildness of the juvenile nature. In The Lord of the Rings, we see different manifestations of this archetype. In the story, we find the spider Shelob, the Grabine from Dunland, the Watcher, Grima Wormtongue.
Keep your forked tongue behind your teeth.
Saruman, who in the books gets called the murderous rogue, a fool, the king's jester, the trap wolf, and the snake coiling itself to strike. Also in The Hobbit, we find the dragon Smaug, the main image of the trickster archetype that's being used in our time.
There is something about you, something made of gold, but far more precious.
However, all these manifestations pale compared to the primary personification of the trickster archetype, the Lord of the Rings, Sauron, the Deceiver.
But they were all of them deceived. The Dark Lord Sauron forged in secret a master ring to control all others.
Sauron was become now a sorcerer of dreadful power, master of shadows and of phantoms, foul in wisdom, cruel in strength, misshaping what he touched, twisting what he ruled, lord of werewolves. His dominion was torment. He was born in Aman, which means blessed realm, the Garden of Eden version of Tolkien's world. The inhabitants of this heavenly place were the Ainur, immortal angelic creatures, made by Iluvatar as Vala and Maya, of which Vala is the higher class. Sauron was a Maya who followed the Vala Melkor, the first embodiment of the trickster archetype, in his quest for dominance and power. In all the deeds of Melkor, the Morgoth upon Ada, in his vast works and in the deceits of his cunning, Sauron had a part and was only less evil than his master in that for long he served another and not himself. But after years he rose like a shadow of Morgoth and a ghost of his malice and walked behind him on the same ruinous path down into the void. When the dark enemy and trickster Morgoth was defeated, Sauron took the role and goal of Morgoth on himself to rule Middle-earth. A curious combination of typical trickster motives can be found in the alchemical figure of Mercurius. For instance, his fondness for sly jokes and malicious pranks, his powers as a shapeshifter, his dual nature, half animal, half divine, his exposure to all kinds of tortures, and, last but not least, his approximation to the figure of a savior. In the Silmarillion, we can read about all these trickster attributes in the character of Sauron. He gets his amusement by wickedly deceiving people. He can shift shapes. His dual nature includes both earthly and heavenly attributes. He likes to torture and to torment, and is in approximation to the Savior. His title as the Lord of the Rings has a double meaning. The exoteric meaning is known to all, but the esoteric meaning is that he is the Lord of the planet Saturn. The trickster's compensatory relation to the saints led to some strange ecclesiastical customs based on memories of the ancient Saturnalia. Mostly they were celebrated on the days immediately following the birth of Christ, that is, in the new year with singing and dancing. But there are many other forms of worshipping this planet. In classical Greece he was worshipped as Kronos and by the Romans as Saturn.
The Temple of Saturn is one of the great Republican-era temples, it's constructed on the slopes of the Capitoline Hill, still today overlooking the Roman Forum.
But of capital, agriculture, liberation, time, and the least important and yet paramount for most people, wealth.
I swore that oath to the one who wields the king's jewel, the Arkenstone.
Which is why we're going to need a burglar.
Men as well as women labor always under the heavy shadow of ideologies, some conscious, some inherited from family and ethnic group, some part of the fabric of a nation's history and its mythic soil. This shadow is an oppressive weight on the soul. Men labor under it, oppressed and blighted in spirit. The experience of this weighty shadow is saturnine.
There you are, thief in the shadows.
Ideology gives evildoing its long-sought justification and gives the evildoer the necessary steadfastness and determination. That is a social theory which helps to make his act seem good instead of bad in his own and others' eyes, so that he won't hear reproaches and curses, but will receive praise and honor.
Not stuck in here, you know. There are guards nearby.
The trickster archetype knows different manifestations as the Lord of the Rings. Examples can be found in the Marvel series Loki, where the Lord of the Rings, which controls all the universes, is found in the person of Kang the Conqueror. There he tries to tempt the male and female version of the Norwegian embodiment of the trickster archetype to take over his position and power as Lord of the Ring.
There's two options. One, you kill me and destroy all this, and you don't just have one devil, you have an infinite amount. Or you two run the thing.
In the Spider-Man movies, he is embodied in the mechanical tentacles with artificial intelligence of Otto Octavius, like Kang, a scientist.
The artificial intelligence in the arms is as advanced as you suggest. Couldn't that make you vulnerable to them?
How right you are. Which is why I developed this inhibitor chip to protect my higher brain function. It means I maintain control of these arms, instead of them controlling me.
Saturn symbolizes a psychic process as well as a quality or kind of experience. He is not merely a representative of pain, restriction and discipline. He is also a symbol of the psychic process, natural to all human beings, by which an individual may utilize the experience of pain, restriction and discipline as a means for greater consciousness and fulfillment. Psychology has demonstrated that there is within the individual psyche a motive or impulsion towards wholeness or completeness.
From the lowest dungeon to the highest peak, I fought him, the Balrog of Morgoth, until at last I threw down my enemy and smote his ruin upon the mountainside. Darkness took me.
The evil and negativity of the trickster archetype, the pain it brings forth by not adhering to rules and self-control because it hates self-imposed restrictions, must be used to become a greater individual, to realize your true and final potential.
That was what they used to call me. Gandalf the Grey. I am Gandalf the White.
The duality which a man finds in himself below the threshold of consciousness is usually very disturbing, for we are likely to forget that anything standing in the light casts a dark shadow. God and Satan, whether they have objective existence or not, most definitely exist as impulses within the human psyche.
It's a pity Bilbo didn't kill him when he had the chance.
So when I say that the impulses which we find in ourselves should be understood as the will of God, I wish to emphasize that they ought not to be regarded as arbitrary wishing and willing, but as absolutes which one must learn how to handle correctly. The will can control them only in part. I should also like the term God in the phrase the will of God to be understood not so much in the Christian sense as in the sense intended by Diotima when she said, Eros, dear Socrates, is a mighty demon. The Greek words demon and daemonium express a determining power which comes of a man from outside, like providence or fate, though the ethical decision is left to man.